And joining us now for the other side of this issue, we have the spokesperson for the Vice President. We have Attorney Michael Poa joining us to give the side of the defense. Magandang umaga sa iyo. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Magandang umaga, Ms. Gretchen, and magandang umaga sa lahat ng mga nanonood sa atin. Thank you for having us.
Okay, the last we know from the Vice President's team is that they were asked by the Supreme Court to respond to the MR, to the motion for reconsideration. Anong mga hiningi ng mga detalye nitong Supreme Court as a response?
Nothing specific naman.
Okay.
It's usual, no, na pag may motion for reconsideration, the other party is asked to comment. So sa atin, what we will be doing is, and with what we are already doing, hinihimay lang natin yung mga argumento na nilatag ng House of Representatives through the Office of the Solicitor General doon sa kanilang motion for reconsideration. And of course, we will respond to each and every argument that they propose there.
At isa nga sa mga argumento na yan ay meron daw factual errors dito sa desisyon ng Korte Suprema. Let me cite one, ABS-CBN News clarifying through a statement that they never said in their article that there was no plenary vote before this was passed on to the Senate. Sinabi nila na meron nga yan, that happened in the records. Do you expect the Supreme Court to have some changes in its decision because of those factual errors?
Well, number one, when it comes to those alleged factual errors, allegation pa lang yan, no? So they have to prove that in fact there were factual errors. Our position is, of course, wala, no? But I cannot go into detail because that will be part and parcel of our comment. Pangalawa, even if there were factual errors, ang isang magandang elemento pa dyan is, would those factual errors actually affect the decision, diba? Kasi hindi lang naman porket may error automatically nire-reverse mo ng decision. It depends if that factual error is significant enough that it would have affected the decision. So yun yung mga bagay na ilalagay namin sa comment namin, yung mga detalye on whether or not there was in fact or there were in fact factual errors. At tingnan natin kung ano yung magiging tingin or appreciation ng Supreme Court.
Okay. Then Attorney Bukoy said that the way that this impeachment complaint was lodged was according to jurisprudence, the Francisco and Gutierrez cases, kung saan parang yung deemed initiated ang isang impeachment claim kapag na-refer na ito sa Committee on Justice. And this ruling actually put in additional requirements to meet the declaration of an impeachment complaint being initiated as legal. At sabi din niya na dapat kung mayroon mang dinagdag ng mga requirement, dapat prospective ito at hindi ito retroactive. What would you say to that?
Let me premise my response by saying that, of course, we respect Attorney Bukoy and the position of the House of Representatives. Siyempre, yan yung position nila. No? And tayo naman also, we have to understand, we're advocating also naman for the petitioner, which is the Vice President. So, obviously and naturally, our position will run contrary to their position. So sa atin, hindi natin nakikita na may departure from Francisco and Gutierrez. In fact, our petition, when we filed it, if you read it, is actually hinged also on Francisco and Gutierrez. So, syempre, ang position natin is wala tayong nakikitang departure on that. Even Attorney Francisco himself came out saying that he felt na wala namang departure. But these are things, again, it's so difficult for us to directly answer your question with the details because then we will preempt our comment. No? But in gist, wala kaming nakikitang pagkakaiba. In our position is that the ruling came out of an analysis of the Constitution, the rules of the House itself, and as well as the jurisprudence, which includes Francisco and Gutierrez.
Well, to the Vice President's team's defense, do you think that she was not given due process here, the opportunity to know what she was being accused of prior to this being transmitted to the Senate? Do you agree with that observation?
Well, of course, due process kasi is innate in every stage of any proceeding. No? So, and that was the finding of the Supreme Court. And sa atin...
Kinulang ba talaga?
Well, yan ang finding ng Supreme Court, so I don't even want to go into that. But sa atin, oo, dapat naman siguro nabigyan siya ng notice, nabigyan siya ng panahon mag-respond. But ang main point kasi namin dito, when you talk about due process, is the grave abuse of discretion on the part of the House. No? So ano yung sinasabi namin dun sa aming petition? Ang tinutukoy namin is yung pag-freeze nung mga first 3 complaints na hindi kaagad-agad na transmit sa ating speaker kung saan mag-run na kaagad yung period. You know, all those things come into play, all those things come into the due process requirement, and yun ang talagang contention natin sa ating petition, na nagkaroon ng grave abuse of discretion on the part of the initiation of the impeachment complaints. At yun naman yung dinulong natin sa Korte Suprema.
But in principle, isn't the House allowed to reconcile the different versions of the complaints to come up with one credible complaint?
Well, if that is the case, according to the decision, kasi it wasn't a reconciliation. It was a totally different complaint from the first 3. So, kasi iba rin talaga yung mode. No? The first mode was the usual filing of the complaint, endorsement, and then as the Constitution says, it has to be referred to a committee.
Kumbaga parang prioritize itong nagkaroon na ng signature, yung fast track lane.
I think nakita
Parang
naman natin yun. But let's just stick with the decision siguro muna. Because obviously what I say and what they'll say will always be opposing positions.
Correct.
And that's normal. That's natural. So, but ang sinasabi natin dito is, nakita na rin naman ng Supreme Court yun, na iba talaga. It wasn't parang kinombine mo lang yung first 3 tapos nagkaroon ka ng fourth. The Supreme Court was very clear in its decision na ibang mode totally yung fourth impeachment complaint.
Pero ngayon, nire-require na mag-present ng evidence, tama? I mean, kasama ng impeachment complaint,
Yes.
dapat kasama na rin yung full scope of evidence.
Well, hindi naman full scope of evidence, I believe. Evidence, kasi ang pinaka-importante nating pag-usapan dito, Gretchen, is the fact that the complaint must be verified. Diba? At pag sinabi mong it must be verified, doon sa verification, sasabihin ng kung sino man ang nagve-verify na unang-una, nabasa niya yung complaint at base sa allegations at kung ano man ang mga supporting evidence, he or she feels strongly na dapat magkaroon ng may liability yung impeachable officer. So, doon pumapasok yung evidence. Kasi kung yung naka-attach naman ay hindi naman nagpapakita na kung sakaling totoo lahat ng ito, dapat ma-impeach yung officer na yon. Paano mo ngayon ma-determine, paano mo ngayon ma-verify na based on your appreciation of the complaint, the person must be impeached. Kaya mo gusto i-file itong complaint na to. So, doon naman nanggagaling yung Supreme Court. So, we're not saying like the full-blown, full scope of evidence.
Pero
We're just saying
lang?
enough, sufficient evidence to form a belief, no? Na may pinanggagalingan at dapat kung totoo nga ang naging allegation based on evidence, dapat kang ma-impeach ang
And we
officer.
had actually several hearings to talk about the confidential funds of the Vice President, kung saan lumabas yung mga resibo na
Yes.
pinagpapaliwanag nga kung bakit saan nanggaling si Mary Grace Piatos at Chippy at lahat-lahat pa. Hindi ba sapat na yun na ebidensya to at least get this going?
Well,
And the other argument is, if hiningi mo lahat ng ebidensya or as much as possible to disclose kung ano yung mga evidence, ay baka ma-jeopardize naman ang security nung mga witnesses.
Exactly. But kasi we have 7 articles. No? It's not just one article. There are 7 articles in the articles of impeachment. At kung ang naka-attach ay just acknowledgement receipts, I guess, yan nga ay, syempre ang posisyon namin, it's not sufficient. Syempre ang posisyon ng kabila, it's sufficient. So that's why, ang sinasabi ko, yung mga ganitong pag-uusap, kailangan talaga meron tayong judge o meron tayong katulad sa Korte Suprema na magsasabi kung tama na ba yun, kung sufficiente na ba yun. Kasi syempre sa atin, we will say it's insufficient. Sa kabila, they will say it's sufficient. Of course, to us, just attaching those things, it's quite a big leap. No? Quite a big leap because you're saying just because may ganito, kinuha na yung pera, kinurap na yung pera, na hindi na napunta
But
sa tamang
aren't those
proyekto
things
yung
supposed to
pera.
be discussed in the context of a trial? I mean, yung sufficiency of evidence, yung weight of the evidence.
Exactly. But that's why when we talk about victory or vindication, we say wala pa yan kasi nasa merits yan. No? What we're talking about here is the initiation process. The process by which you initiate an impeachment.
Correct.
At yun lang naman ang naging discussion sa Supreme Court. Ang naging discussion lang sa Supreme Court is paano ba yung ang isiniwang proseso ayon ba sa saligang ayon ba sa ating saligang batas yun. Yung on the evidence, hindi naman sinasabi ng Supreme Court na dapat full-blown yung evidence mo. Ang sinasabi lang doon na parte doon sa evidence is part and parcel of that verification requirement.
So, nung hinain itong impeachment complaint sa inyo, walang kasamang naka-attach na evidence?
Ang naka-attach ay yung mga sinasabi, yung mga nabanggit
yung
mo lang,
resibo lang.
na mga acknowledgement receipts ng PSA. But as to all others, as far as I know, dahil yung sa kopya namin, wala. But again, let's not, I hope we don't dwell on that because like you said, yung weight or probative value ng mga ebidensya is really best threshed out in trial. Ang nangyari lang dito is really, it's on the initiation of the impeachment complaint. So I don't really want to come out and say
Correct.
kulang ang ebidensya nila and things like that.
Attorney Bukoy said that there are 5 MRs that have been filed before the Supreme Court at lahat itong mga petitioner nung mga impeachment complaints ay nagkasundo na mag-file nitong MR. Parang lahat sila nandyan. So we will wait for that because we don't want to preempt it. No? But I want to talk about the notices of disallowance by the COA.
Yes.
Has this already been answered?
Yes, the notices of this, well, there's only one notice of disallowance issued by COA against the Office of Vice President. It is now undergoing review. No? Meron kaming inihain na petition for review before the commission proper or of the Commission on Audit. Yan kasi yung proseso. Once there is a notice of disallowance, ang remedy, ang legal remedy dyan is iakyat yan sa Commission proper via petition for review. Yan ay pending pa sa ngayon.
So it hasn't been cleared yet.
Hasn't been
on the
cleared.
issue of the 25 million confidential funds.
Yes, although it wasn't the entire amount kasi that was disallowed. It was around 73
plus,
million that was disallowed. So yan yung amount na since yan yung amount ng subject of disallowance, yan yung subject rin ng ating petition for review.
Okay. But could you help us understand though? I mean, itong issue din sa safe houses, 16 million was spent on 34 safe houses for 11 days in the last 11 days of 2022. Saan nga ba ginamit yun?
It's very difficult to answer that question at this point. It's not that we don't have an answer, no, Gretchen, but because that will also come into play if ever man magkaroon ng impeachment trial. That will also come into play dito sa petition for review namin. So I hope you can be patient with me because I really cannot answer that question at this point. It will really preempt and it will just open a can of worms without wanting to address it now. Kasi meron tayong sagot dyan, obviously, but that is best answered in the proper forum, which, again, is the impeachment trial or COA or even in the ombudsman case. No? As you know, there is an ombudsman case that is ongoing right now. So, hindi ko talaga masasagot yan ngayon. Again, I apologize to you and to your viewers.
It's okay. I know you're just doing your job. And isasama ko na rin itong tanong ko. Habang nandito tayo. In a hearing, you acknowledged that you received an envelope from the Vice President and she was known for giving out envelopes with cash. I mean, una-una, para saan itong mga ano na to?
Sorry, but I'll correct you there. I actually didn't receive any envelopes. No? In the hearing, when they asked me if I received it, I said no. What I only got, if any, was reimbursements. Kasi at that time, I was a spokesperson of the DepEd. And as you know, with my engagement with media, for example, hindi may iwasan that sometimes kailangan mong maglabas
shoulder,
ng
yes.
konti. So those were the only instances. But as to yung mga envelopes o white envelopes na nabanggit dun sa hearing, I categorically said that wala akong natanggap na ganyan. It must be maybe
Okay, yes. Actually, I
nagkamali
got
tayo.
this from an article, no. So maybe you were misquoted, but several DepEd officials have admitted to receiving envelopes containing 25,000 peso monthly allowance, reportedly from the Vice President, then DepEd Secretary.
Again, those were the claims in the committee hearings. Right now, we cannot respond to that only because also that is part of the articles of impeachment under Article 3, I believe. No? So I'm sure you'd understand na hindi namin sasagutin dito. And that's also the reason why hirap na hirap ako. And I always tell the host, pasensya ka na kasi
Okay.
pagdating sa merits, we cannot preempt our arguments, diba? Because we have to defend the rights of our client the best way we can.
Correct.
And in preempting that, medyo baka ma-trial by publicity tayo dito.
Sige. So you are spokesperson of the defense team, but not anymore of the Vice President's office?
Yes, wala na. I started as spokesperson of DepEd.
Yes.
And then I was moved to OVP, but only on a contractual consultancy basis, no? As their spokesperson. But I think sometime it was October, when I was no longer engaged. No? Hindi na namin, pinre-terminate na namin yung consultancy contract ko doon. And right now I'm in private practice and just a lawyer of the Vice President.
Now focusing on the impeachment.
Focusing on impeachment, and for myself, I'm also her lawyer for her other cases.
Okay.
As you know, may DOJ case siya, yung grave threat and inciting
Yes,
to sedition was filed. So I'm lawyering for her there. Also with the ombudsman, ombudsman cases, and also yung PNP, but the PNP one na dismissed na, no? Yung sa City Prosecutor of Quezon City naman for direct assault, yung nangyaring insidente sa Veterans Memorial. So, yung mga ganung bagay. So, right now, I'm really just a private practitioner.
And how are you preparing for February 6, no? For the date when a new impeachment complaint could be filed? Sinabi na ng mga House prosecutors na magkakaroon, at ang mangyayari dyan, mag-uunahan. Kasi unahan ng credible complaint. And how is your team preparing for that?
We're just continuing what we have been doing since February, kasi simula naman nang naihain itong impeachment complaint. While we filed a petition before the Supreme Court, as you know, hindi naman natin, we were optimistic, but hindi pa rin naman natin sigurado kung ano yung magiging desisyon. So we were preparing since February. We were ready to go to trial. As you also know, the Vice President always said that she was ready to go to trial. So ngayon, in preparation for Feb 6, 2026, tuloy-tuloy lang, nakikita pa rin kami ng defense team. In fact, ngayon, inuuna muna namin yung comment namin dito sa motion for reconsideration. And then, tuloy-tuloy lang ang preparation.
Naipasa na ba?
Hindi pa. We
Okay.
received formal notice of the order of the Supreme Court 2 days ago.
Okay.
So, we technically have 10 days from that point to file. We have been we have started drafting it na. So, may mga fine-tuning lang na ginagawa. So, definitely we will submit that comment within the period provided.
Pero bakit nga ba 16 lawyers ang kinuha ng Vice Presidente?
Dapat ma-explain siguro natin yun. Kasi, parang when it's...
iba-iba ang ang impression nun
16 lawyers, because if you really look at the composition, it's part of it is a whole firm, no? Si Fortune, Narvasa, and Salazar with Attorney Sig Fortune, sila Attorney Sison, Attorney Narvasa. They're part of a firm. So most of these lawyers are Fortune, Narvasa, Salazar lawyers.
Okay.
Because naturally, kahit naman sa atin, when we have clients, hindi lang naman isang abogado mula sa firm ang nagtatrabaho. It's a whole team. So yun yung team. And then aside from Fortune, Narvasa, Salazar, there are really just 4 other lawyers that are not part of the firm that are part of the impeachment team.
Okay.
So 16 kami, but mostly ang karamihan yan is because of the team coming from Fortune, Narvasa, Salazar.
And I guess the last question, people have been looking for the Vice President, always asking where she is. Tell us about her state of life now, na pabalik-balik siya sa Hague, binibisita niya yung Pangulo. Paano pa siya nagkakaroon ng, kumusta ang schedule niya? Paano niya binabalanse itong...
Hindi na kasi ako spokesperson, di ba, ng ating
your
Vice Presidente.
To your knowledge.
Napakahirap sagutin yan at hindi siguro inappropriate for me to answer. But just to answer that question, maybe from the legal team's point of view na lang, sinasabi kasi parang maalis siya parate, baka hindi nagaganap pa yung trabaho niya. But pagdating sa legal team, never kami nagkaroon ng problema. Kasi whether we need a meeting na virtual or in-person, she always makes the time. So never kami nagkaroon ng problema. There's always constant communication with her, be it through text or yun nga, nagkakaroon kami ng mga in-person meetings. So I can, from our perspective, whether she's here or whether she's elsewhere, hindi naman tumitigil yung trabaho. Of course, I cannot speak for operations of OVP anymore or other aspects of her duties. But pagdating sa defense team, never kami nagkaroon ng issue. Never namin sinabi na, oh, wala siya, so paano to? No, because even if whether she's abroad or here, when we need to talk to her, we get to talk to her. So, and she's very hands-on, actually. Every step of the way, pagdating sa strategy ng defense team, she's consulted and we get quick responses. And she's very decisive.
And how often is she in The Hague?
I wouldn't know eh. I don't know her schedule. No? We just find out. Nagsasabi naman siya if she'll be out so that if there's anything that needs to be signed, it's always done. And in fact, the Vice President, and this is this is something siguro that I can share out of my personal experience. Hindi siya yung tipo na you always have to adjust to her schedule. If she wants a meeting, nagtatanong pa yan sa amin, and even sa akin personally, if I'm free on so-and-so date. At pag hindi ako libre because I have other clients that I have to attend to, siya pa yung nag-a-adjust sa schedule. So it really hasn't been that difficult for us. So again, ang hirap magsalita for that aspect, yung pinanggagalingan ng tanong mo, because that really is on the OVP and they have their own spokesperson now. But on
nasanay lang kami, no, you representing the Vice President on all sides, from all sides.
I understand.
But thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Gretchen, and really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you for having me on the show. This is my first time on your show.
But sa big story, nakita na rin tayo.
Thank you.
We have a spokesperson for Vice President Sara Duterte's defense team, Attorney Michael Poa. Thank you again for your time today.